I first met her on a morning when Earth's sky had the color of old steel, the kind that made you feel small even before the aliens arrived. The ships had been hovering above major cities for 3 months by then, immense crescent-shaped structures that bent light around themselves, silent except for a low vibration you felt more in your bones and your ears. Governments called it first contact. Social media called it the end. Most people, including me, just tried to survive the waiting. My name is Elias Rowan. Before the arrival, I was nobody special, a systems analyst working contract jobs, living alone, keeping my head down. After the arrival, I became something worse. I became interesting. The alien delegation, who called themselves the Kepri, requested a human liaison with a specific neurological profile. They didn't explain why. They didn't need to. When your species is outmatched technologically by centuries, you don't negotiate. You comply. That's how I ended up inside the observation wing of the Kepri flagship, standing in a room that seemed grown rather than built, its walls pulsing faintly like the inside of a living organism. And that's where she walked in. She was taller than me by a head, her posture impossibly straight, her skin a pale silver blue that reflected the ambient light like water under moonlight. Her eyes were large and dark, without visible whites, and when she looked at me, it felt like being seen from the inside out. She studied me in silence for a long moment. Then she tilted her head and said in perfect English, "You think I'm in love?" The question hit me so hard I forgot to breathe. "I what?" I stammered. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it, more like curiosity. "Your heart rate increased by 12% when I entered. Your pupils dilated. Your breathing became shallow. Humans often display these signs when experiencing romantic attraction." Heat flooded my face. "That doesn't mean, you're an alien. You just walked in. Anyone would be nervous." "Of course," she said calmly, "which is why I asked the question." I swallowed. "Are you in love?" Her smile widened, and for the first time, something like amusement flickered across her features. "No, Elias Rowan, but you are very close to the truth." She gestured, and the room changed. The walls dissolved into a panoramic display of Earth from orbit, blue, fragile, spinning slowly beneath us. "My name is Salif," she said. "I am a cognitive archivist of the Kepri Continuum. I am here because of you." That was when I realized this wasn't about diplomacy. It was about me. They had been watching us longer than we knew, not with satellites or probes, but with something far more intimate, probability threads. The Kepri perceive reality not as a single timeline, but as a vast tapestry of branching possibilities. Civilizations, to them, were not judged by weapons or technology, but by the shape of their potential futures. Most species, Salith explained over the following days, develop along predictable arcs: expansion, conflict, stabilization, or collapse. Humanity is irregular. Irregular how? I asked. She looked at me for a long time before answering. You adapt in ways that defy statistical models. You change when you should break. I didn't see how that had anything to do with me until she showed me the simulations. In one, Earth burned within 50 years, consumed by its own wars. In another, humanity spread across the stars, becoming a stabilizing force in the galaxy. In dozens more, we vanished quietly, victims of mistakes too small to notice until it was too late. And me? I asked. Salith isolated a single thread. In all futures where humanity survives and thrives, you are present. I laughed. I couldn't help it. You've got the wrong guy. I don't lead movements. I don't invent world-changing tech. I can barely keep my own life together. That is precisely why you matter, she said. You are not a leader. You are not a hero. You are a convergence point. She explained it slowly, patiently, as if speaking to a child. Some minds, she said, acted like anchors in the probability field. Their choices, no matter how small, nudge reality towards certain outcomes. Most people affected only their immediate surroundings. A rare few, like me, had influence far beyond their apparent reach. You make others choose differently, Selah said. Not by force, by presence. I thought of my past. The co-workers who'd quit destructive jobs after late-night conversations. The friends who'd changed paths after asking my advice. The strangers who'd told me, years later, that something I'd said once had stuck with them. I had always dismissed it as coincidence. The Khepri had not. The more time I spent with Salith, the more complicated things became. She questioned me relentlessly, not just about my actions, but my thoughts, my doubts, my fears. She wanted to understand why I hesitated, why I empathized, why I chose restraint when aggression would have been easier. You are inefficient, she told me once, almost fondly. You feel too much. Feeling too much is kind of our thing. I replied, she considered that. It may be your greatest strength, or your final weakness. Despite her clinical tone, I began to notice small changes. The way she lingered after our sessions ended. The way her voice softened when she said my name. The way her gaze followed me, thoughtful, almost protective. And yes, I felt it too. I tried not to. I told myself it was proximity, novelty, stress. But when she entered the room, my chest tightened. When she left, the space felt emptier. One day, as we stood watching Earth rise over the curve of the ship, I finally asked the question that had been eating at me. Salith, I said quietly, are you developing feelings for me? She turned to face me, her expression unreadable. You think I'm in love? She asked again. I nodded. A little, yeah. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she raised a hand, and the air between us shimmered. Images poured out, memories that weren't mine. Alien worlds, ancient stars, civilizations rising and falling over millions of years. And at the center of them all, the Khepri. We do not love as you do, she said softly. We bind. The truth hit me like a blow. Salith wasn't falling in love with me. She was preparing to claim me. The Khepri had a solution for humanity's unpredictability. Me, by integrating my consciousness into their continuum, an immense network of minds that guided their civilization. They could stabilize humanity's future. My presence would act as a corrective force, subtly steering events away from collapse. I wouldn't rule. I wouldn't command. I would influence from the inside. You would no longer be human in the way you are now, Selah said, but you would remain yourself, and your species would endure. And if I say no, I asked. She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Then humanity's future returns to uncertainty, she said. And uncertainty at your scale often ends in extinction. I felt sick. This wasn't a choice. It was a loaded equation. What about you? I asked, "Where do you fit into this?" Her eyes met mine. "I would be your anchor, your interpreter, your companion." It sounded almost like love. Almost. That night, alone in the chamber they'd given me, I stared at my reflection in the curved, living wall. I thought of Earth, of billions of people who would never know my name, of all the small choices that had led me here. I realized something then that the Kepri hadn't accounted for. Influence works both ways. I agreed. The integration began at dawn. The chamber filled with light as Kepri technology interfaced with my neural patterns. I felt myself stretching, expanding, touching minds vast and ancient. It was terrifying and beautiful. Through it all, Salith was there, her presence steady, guiding me through the storm. And then, in the heart of the continuum, I made my move. I didn't resist. I reframed. I introduced something the Kepri had never truly understood. Doubt. Compassion without calculation. Choice without optimization. I didn't overwrite them. I couldn't, but I nudged. Probability shifted. The continuum wavered, not collapsing, but adapting. Salith gasped, her eyes wide. "What are you doing?" "Being human," I said, my voice echoing through the network. I showed them futures they had dismissed as inefficient. Ones where uncertainty bred creativity, where emotion forged resilience, where humanity's chaos didn't threaten the galaxy, but enriched it. When the light faded, I collapsed, breathing hard. The integration had completed, but not the way they planned. Weeks later, the Kepri ships departed Earth. No occupation, no control, only observation and partnership. Humanity would chart its own path, guided not by a hidden hand, but by a shared understanding. Sayla stood with me one last time in the observation wing, watching Earth shrink into the distance. "You changed us," she said quietly. "So did you," I replied. She studied me, her expression softer than I had ever seen it. "You think I'm in love?" she asked. I smiled. "Are you?" She considered the question, not as a calculation, but as a feeling. "Yes," she said at last, but not as I was taught to understand it. I reached out, and she took my hand, an alien gesture, imperfect and sincere. I wasn't a god. I wasn't a savior. I was a bridge. And for the first time in the vast history of the stars, that was enough.